Welcome to the Danger Zone, the podcast that's uncut, uncensored, and unfiltered. Well, quite literally, because I'm not buying any pop filters.
You cheap bastard.
Hey, Chad. Fuck you. Anyway, I'm your host, Tommy Lee, and sitting to my left is my good friend and audio director, Chad Allen.
Hey guys, how's it going out there?
Hopefully good. Now, I think I should probably briefly explain why I started up a podcast. I found that, through my first couple of years at university, I found there were a lot of people that would say certain things, act certain ways, and just be a certain way so that they could impress people and make sure that people knew that they were normal and that they were saying the nice, pleasant things that everybody wanted to hear. But what I discovered is I just can't be that person. I want to be honest up front, and that's what this podcast is about. Just talking with an open heart, honestly, and just, talking like real people and not having to live up to some kind of social standard and pretend to be something that we're not, because there's no point to that. I mean, we're all individuals for a certain reason, and I think it's something that people shouldn't be ashamed of how they feel, how they think. Just be honest, because I'm just so sick of all these fake people and just all this pretending and all this, you're supposed to say this, you're supposed to be that. I just don't want to do that, so I'm not going to. And hopefully the people that are listening to this and the people that are going to start listening to this will enjoy that and hopefully feel more comfortable to just be honest. What do you think, Chad?
Well, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, this is very explorational for me. I mean, poor Chad, he's already gone through a couple of takes of this. I know we are saying it's uncut, but I mean, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with everything. But honestly, I think let's just have fun with it. Let's just talk honest and open, make a couple mistakes, and hopefully everyone enjoys it.
So what should we start off with, Tommy?
I think the first thing we need to talk about is the recent video that me and Chad ended up finishing from Fifth with Love. I have to apologize to everyone first because that took a whole year. It's crazy. It took a whole year. Let's explain why it took a year. First of all, the footage itself, it took the whole semester to shoot. So one of the things that we put a lot of people in that. There was a lot of different actors, probably the most we've had for one video. And everyone has different schedules, different paces, and it's hard to kind of work around that and, make everyone feel comfortable while at the same time not completely dooming your project, right? So that was one thing. And once we had finished, I found I was pretty just jaded with life. I mean, I was sick of having to, ask people repeatedly if they wanted to be, when they could shoot, because they wanted to be in it, and I'd already sort of written a lot of people in it, and then they started to back out. So that bothered me. I found that I was starting to get really tired of my studies, too. I was working way too hard and studying to a point that I was just tiring myself out, and I wasn't really exercising or eating well, so I was pretty out of shape at that point. So, but recently, I guess I just got the creative bug back. I really wanted to start making movies. I had lots of ideas. I wanted to just create new stories, and so I had to get that video out first so that I could say, we finished that story's done, let's move on. And that's what ended up happening, and it seemed like a lot of people enjoyed it because it's a different feel, you know what I mean? Because there's kind of a disjointedness with the weekly reviews, because it's half like, here's my real life, and then here's me pretending to be like a spy or something, or a superhero, and these films came out a lot more. They're actual narratives, so I think a lot of people enjoyed it, and I hope, if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and give it a watch and let me know what you think. Yeah, so what do you think, Chad?
Well, there's also our new project that we're going to start this summer that we should tell people about.
Right, thanks for reminding me. So what we're essentially doing is we're putting together a more feature-length film, not like 2 hours, but more around like 30 or 40 minutes that I think will be a much more exciting and interesting adventure. And I just want to go bigger with everything, better, bigger story, bigger action, just a bigger feel, go broke, go for broke essentially with this. And yeah, I think everyone's going to really like it. It's going to be a good movie.
Yeah, I can't wait to start the production of that.
Yeah. So Chad, is it okay if I spoil a little big secret for these podcast listeners?
Well, if you have to, I guess you might as well.
All right, so here's the deal. Today, me and Chad, we're taking a look at what is essentially a semi-professional camera. So this semi-professional camera has, technologies and standards that are pretty much what all independent filmmakers look to achieve. 3CCD technology. It's in HD. It has a lot of control. Like with focus and zoom and a lot of things that you can manipulate. It's just a more professional camera, and it's going to have a more professional look. We've already tested out some footage shooting things, and we've already looked through the camera, and we've taken a look, and we're really impressed with the clarity and the kind of professionalism we're getting from it. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Chad, or did I cover the basics there?
Well, I promised you I wasn't going to do this, but when you told me not to show all those pimples on your face with the HD camera, I have to make the audience happy, and they're gonna laugh.
They want my fucking Rocky Mountain forehead. I mean, nobody wants that. I mean, if you want to disgust the audience, you might as well shoot the whole film below my belt so you get a nice shot of my gut for 30 fucking minutes. You might as well, Chad.
Whatever makes the audience laugh, though, right?
All right, well, we'll get your feedback on that, and we'll duly note any kind of things you have to say about that. But yeah, hopefully, on a more serious note, I think it will be that much better of a venture if we do end up getting this camera, and I think everyone's really going to enjoy it. Yeah. So I think we'll change pace now with the podcast, move to something else. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of the people that are my friends now and, people that are big in my life right now, I've met them at different points. I met Russell when I first moved to Portland Estates when I was like 3 or 4. I met my good friend Chad here in primary. I met people like Kyle in junior high, Dawson in high school, and then in TJ and Chris, people like that in high school. Or not high school, sorry, university. See, I told you it's uncut, man. I just fucked up there, Yeah, but I met people at different points in my life. And I think a lot of them, while I've talked a lot about myself when this subject did come up, I don't think a lot of people know like the full story. So without making a really boring like A&E biography on me, well, I'll just try to give you a brief rundown, the cliff notes of important points of my life.
Does that mean that you're going to start right from the minute that you came out of your mother?
Okay. We're not going to start from my birth, but yeah, we'll avoid that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't think people want me to be that detailed and go that far back, but we'll give a brief rundown. So, I should start by saying that I have my two parents, my dad and my mom, as well as my older sister, Debbie, and they were all born in China. And when my sister was, a young child, my dad immigrated to the States and brought my mom and my sister along as well. And essentially he did that so A, he could get a good education in the United States, and B, so he could provide a better life for both my mom and my sister. And yeah, so they first immigrated to the States. Interesting thing is, the first place they choose to move, get this, Virginia. Let me repeat that for those at home who didn't get that. Virginia. I mean, I don't have anything against people from Virginia or Virginia itself, but if I was a Chinese immigrant coming to the States for the first time, I'm sorry, but Virginia would not be the first place on my list of places I'd like to immigrate to first, because it just doesn't seem like a huge multicultural center. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Virginia. Anyway, so they did end up moving to the States, and eventually my dad did end up getting a PhD from Oregon, the University in Oregon. And yeah, eventually they chose to move here in Canada, and then they had me. I know my dad wanted to have me a little bit earlier, even back in the States, when he was still, working as a student, trying to support support his family, working very hard. I think he originally said one time to my mom that he wanted to have 4 kids, but I think after he had me, he gave up because I'm not much of a pain in the ass to have to deal with. But yeah, anyway, they come to Canada, I was born, and we lived in a small apartment in Clayton Park for the first couple of years of my life. We weren't necessarily poor or anything, but we were just making ends meet, your average middle-class family. And eventually, though, we did end up moving to Portland Estates, where I did end up meeting a lot of friends like Russell and Corey and Grant and all those kind of people that, were really close childhood friends before school started. And, I will say that my early childhood wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I got to do a lot of fun stuff. Like, we made forts, we had wars with sticks as swords. I mean, it was a fun time. And I don't look back at that negatively, and it isn't something I would trade. Yeah. So then eventually I started school, and that's where I first met Chad in primary. And, I mean, for the most part, we've been really good friends since then. And, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where when I first, the early couple of years in elementary school, I found that kids didn't really like me. I don't know what it was, whether it was a race issue or, an issue of my maturity, because I was and am still very immature, or just my weird interest, but people just didn't click with me, and I felt like people really hated me, and they made it pretty clear some of the times. But yeah, Chad was one of the first couple of people in elementary school that I really became good friends with, and I think the first time I knew that Chad was going to be a good friend for a long time was you all remember those fucking terrible Christmas concerts. I mean, the ones where teachers would basically make a huge dramatic deal about these little insignificant shitty plays that parents only went to because their kids were in it and because they thought it was important to them. But in reality, the kids fucking hated it, and the parents fucking hated it too. So who was enjoying it? The teachers? It didn't even seem like it. It says, oh, we have to do this because it's Christmas / the holidays now, because you can't say Christmas. Not that I'm religious, but you can't say Christmas. Yeah, but nobody really wanted it except for the teachers. Maybe it was just their way of torturing us before we got out on break. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, about the Christmas concert. The first one, I remember getting there in the evening before the concert was supposed to start. And then I saw Chad, and we had the exact same outfit. I don't mean like similar, like same style. I mean literally the exact same outfit. Chad can vouch for this, right, Chad?
Yeah, same color, same...
I don't even remember. I think it's like a sweater vest or something. It's like a brown sweater vest. We had literally the exact same uniform. I don't know what it was. Like the Sears was having some kind of sale on, really preppy, dumbass clothes for kids. But we were wearing the exact same thing. And I think when you have moments like that, you realize that these people are probably going to be your friends for a long time. And it turned out to be true. So yeah, I mean, the first couple of years of elementary school were really difficult for me because on the one hand, I found that... I found like kids really, I just didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I was a Canadian because I just wasn't at that time. I didn't feel like one. And at the same time, the small number of Chinese students we did have in the school never really took a liking to me either. So, because I guess I was a little too whitewashed or something like that. But I just didn't feel like I was Canadian. I didn't feel like I was Chinese. I didn't feel like I belonged. So to have people like Chad that were really good friends and, treat me well, I think it really made a difference. And another thing that was really important to me in those kind of years was TV shows, because I could go home, I could watch a TV show, and I felt like these are characters that would understand me if they were real. They don't judge me whenever I watch them. They don't mind when I make mistakes or when I sound stupid. So I really took an interest in television and film. I mean, some of the earlier stuff, like my parents introduced me, especially my dad, to James Bond, and I mean, anyone knows me well knows how much I love James Bond, and I was introduced to Dr. No when I was probably about 4 or 5, and that really made an influence on me. Indiana Jones as well, the Star Wars prequels.
Don't you think that's a bad influence to be shown James Bond at 5 years
old?
old?
Oh yeah, I wanted to fucking shoot people, but like, your name's Bond, James Bond, and all that kind of stuff, drink martinis. I didn't want to have sex with women though yet. I wasn't interested in women that way yet, but the basics of James Bond. I want to be a badass like James Bond, and I still do. And things like that. And I mean, obviously, all the anime shows that came along, like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff, Beyblade that came along in that early period. They all had a immense influence on me during those earlier years. But yeah, I mean, there I'd prove, and I mean, I found that I was starting to make friends, although near the end, things started to get difficult again because, I mean, me and Chad, we kind of had a falling out in grade 5, and a lot of people ended up not really liking me at the end of grade 5, and I felt like literally there was a point in grade 6 that I didn't have a single friend, and I was actually alone. So, I might not be alone now, and there's not a lot of points when I am alone, but during that period of time, I was literally alone and had no friends. So I know how it feels, and I know how to survive during periods like that. It's not something I enjoyed, but it was a part of my life, and I can't really ignore it.
Tell me, that was only the first of many falling outs that we had over the years.
Yeah. I mean, me and Chad, we have been fucking at each other's throats a lot of the time, so I can't just, pretend like that was the first and only time. That was a lot of times, right? Yeah, but anyway, I just found eventually that ended, and, I went along, and I started junior high, and although I felt like I had no friends going in, I met a lot of people like Josh. Was one of the first people. I don't know if he still remembers me. People like Kyle, and people like that, and like John as well. People like that. Just a lot of people I met. That core group of people: Josh, Kyle, and John Clayfield, that I met, that I did become good friends with during that period of time. And I started exploring a lot of things. I think, I really started getting really into real anime. Like, I don't consider, like, it is anime, like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it's watered down anime back at the time. It's still awesome because of nostalgia, but it is watered down anime. I think the first anime show I really liked, and this is probably going to piss off a lot of people because it's not a critically acclaimed show. It's not. I wasn't like, oh, you know what? The first anime show I liked was Cowboy Bebop. No, it didn't happen that way. The first show I liked was Inuyasha. That's what started me on the real path to anime, I'd say. It's just, I think it was just because I was just a troubled junior high kid that, I realized watching shows when I was younger where we had those clean faced protagonists. Chad probably knows what I'm talking about too. These clean faced protagonists who were perfectly strong, they talked perfect, they acted perfect, they looked perfect, they always won, they always succeeded. That works when you're like, I don't know, 5 or 6, but when you start to get into your awkward preteen years, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? You just start to realize, I can't be those people, and what if I can't? Is there still room for me? So then shows like that, where you had conflicted and complicated heroes, I think, your traditional anti-heroes, really started, I really got a lot of interest in that. And it was perfect, too, because I loved Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, because he was the James Bond of my childhood, and I was one of those early people that said Daniel Craig is not James Bond. When I first saw pictures of the guy, I'm like, who the fuck is this blonde guy coming in? Who the fuck does he think James Bond? I mean, I was like, this guy can't be James Bond. Then when I saw Casino Royale, I was blown away with how good it was and how Daniel Craig really was James Bond. And I mean, I pretty much was sold through like the first minute in the pre-credit sequence when he kicks that guy in the face. I knew, I'm like, that's James Bond right there. And I think it's just those characters that changed a lot. And I was I don't know. I was just kind of troubled in junior high. I was a bit of a meathead. I think people can probably remember me punching lockers or stuff like that. Probably Chad, too. Chad probably remembers me getting really ticked off, right, Chad?
Or using me as a punching bag instead.
Yeah, I was a bit of a... And, I got suspended twice for fighting. Not just once. You think once is like, oh, you made a mistake. Twice is like, you're a bit of a meathead. And I was. But, I didn't think of myself as being that bad. And things did eventually work out. And... Another thing was at junior high, what might surprise people was I wasn't a great student back then. The worst grade I got was a D in PDR. I remember that because I just didn't give a shit. And I came there, I just didn't do anything. And I didn't care because it was a bullshit course, a bullshit teacher. I just didn't care. And it was only until like the end of junior high I really started caring, because I realized I got to get my shit together and do something, or else I'm going to end up, working, I don't know, somewhere terrible. Like, I don't know, just something terrible.
McDonald's.
McDonald's. Although that was actually the first job I ever wanted, a McDonald's fry cook, because I thought, A, I could eat burgers, and B, famous people probably eat at McDonald's too, so I can meet famous people. Yeah, thankfully that line of thinking has changed. But yeah, I just remember being, in junior high, I think I was just a little troubled. Not troubled like he's in a gang, troubled or like he's going to go to juvie, but, I got in a couple scraps. I got kicked out. I got sent to the office a ridiculous time. I think if we did a tally of the amount of times in my entire life I've been sent to the office, it would probably be equal to like at least a semester of a year, because I got sent a lot to the office just because I would swear, or I wouldn't agree with something, or I'd get ticked because someone pushed me. I did have a short fuse. I think it really started in those later, like grade 5 or 6 near the end of elementary school. I started really developing a short fuse because people would test me, push me around, and I just couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, I think thankfully things worked out. My grades really improved at the end of that year. And, I really started feeling like maybe there was something for me out there. And as long as I worked hard and I didn't start fucking fighting people for no apparent reason, that things would work out for me. And then when we got to high school, me and Chad, because we weren't exactly worse enemies at that point. We weren't best friends either at that point. Yeah, that's honest, right?
Yeah.
That seems about right. But yeah, I remember my sister telling me that, oh, Tommy, this is the period of time where, things are going to work out. You're going to meet friends that, could last your entire life. There'll be lots of hot girls that will want to date you. You'll have a lot of fun experiences. Yeah, well, I don't have a lot of friends from high school anymore. Like I have a couple that are okay, friends I talk to occasionally, but I don't have any like lifelong friends that'd be like, come to my wedding and be a part of like the groom. What the fuck do they call those? Like?
Best man.
Well, the best man is just one person. What's the whole thing? The groom's entourage. We're calling that now. I can't remember, but I don't have a lot of people like that from high school, especially because a lot of them I did have falling outs with, and I did not find that the girls were. I mean, there were a couple of hot girls. Let's be honest, but I think it was just we got the shitty end of the stick. Hey, Chad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember when I came into high school, people basically told me, "Hey, this is gonna make or break your life."
Now thinking back, it was pretty useless for the most part. I mean, half the stuff I learned actually, the majority of the stuff I learned in high school, I never used again. Calculus was the only thing I ended up using, and that's only because I had to take calculus. And programming 12 because I'm a computer science student, and programming is programming. But everything else was a fucking waste of time. But anyway, yeah. During that time, I think I sort of figured out more or less who I was. I wasn't exactly the meathead I was in junior high that punch lockers, yell at people, get pissed, because I did have a short fuse, and I made it perfectly clear how far you could go before I got pissed, but people just like tested me, so shit like that happened. But I was I was much more mellow at that point, and one of the things was I was really concerned about my grades at that point, and I still am, I guess, but not to that degree in high school where I would just be so disappointed in myself if I didn't get perfect grades, and especially stuff like math that I was never really good at. But at that time, one thing I really say, high school, one of the many things that was really important that I will say I'm glad high school happened was, if it hadn't been for high school, me and Chad wouldn't have become as good friends again. Like, we were sort of on and off friends, but at that point, I mean, it wasn't really until high school that we became like that, best friends again. And we all know why, right, Chad? Do you want me to go into it?
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay, so I didn't really want to have to bring this guy's name up. I don't want to be that guy that names certain people, like so-and-so did this to me. I don't want that, like a disgruntled ex-wrestler that does shoot interviews. But here's the idea. Basically, if it hadn't been for Blake Rhino, I wouldn't be best friends with Chad. Not as much, for sure. Basically, at the beginning of grade 10, I believe it was. Yeah. Grade 10, we were just starting. We're just getting excited because, it's a new experience. This is supposed to be the biggest thing ever, right? This is where everything changes and life becomes wonderful. Yeah, it didn't. But at that point, Chad had started to become good friends with Blake. And from day one, I just thought Blake was a huge dick. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's not the guy's really awful. He's just a dick. Like, we can't change that. And he was like, "Oh, well, me and Chad, we went to Dairy Queen." I'm like, "Oh, congratulations, fuckface. I don't care." And at first, Blake was very nice to Chad, and he was his best friend. And for some reason, Blake and Chad, because I was really good friends with, Kyle and John, and I'd spend time with them and, do stuff with them. And Blake and Chad kind of just joined on, and things were okay at first. I mean, I really didn't like Blake. I just thought he was a conceited prick. He had a funny accent, his fake Texas accent. But anyway, at first, it seemed okay for the most part. I didn't really like that Blake was around, but I didn't really care that much to say, "Oh, go fuck yourself and leave." But he started really treating Chad like shit, even though it was him that first started treating Chad really well and being good friends with him. I just noticed Blake started making fun of Chad a lot, and for some reason it really bothered me, even though I was kind of a dick to Chad too in junior high. But hey, buddy, we all know that it goes both ways, right?
Fuck you, Tommy.
Fuck you, Chad. See, we're over it, right, Chad?
Maybe,
yeah. But I just really hated Blake for that, and I realized it was ridiculous the way I had treated Chad sometimes, and even if he did treat me kind of shitty sometimes, it pissed me off. I did the same to him, and it wasn't fair, and I really hated that Blake was treating him that way, and that's when we started taking a big dump on Blake. Basically, like, we made a lot of jokes. We made fun of his fake Texas accent. He said red library a lot, and we fucking hated that, so we made fun of that. And we made fun of. He told us this ridiculous story one time. I'll regale the story again. Basically, what had happened was his dad had one time worked at a Dairy Queen, and apparently they had found him having sex with someone in the freezer. So we gave him the nickname Freezer Burn, which I think is still the fucking funniest thing. And me and Kyle one day we sat down, we made songs like we wrote lyrics for I Will Survive, but we changed it to him about his like frozen wiener, and we thought it was like the fucking funniest thing ever. I know we're so mature, right, in high school talking about frozen wieners, but it was the funniest fucking thing. And we fucking tore an asshole in him, like everything, like anything we could find, we fucking tore an asshole. So yes, actually, we're terrible. We are terrible. In the sense that the same thing I was complaining Blake was doing to Chad, we did to Blake, but he fucking deserved it, and I feel good about it. Yeah, but I have to thank Blake in a twisted way, in the sense, like, in a backhanded way, in the sense that if he hadn't come along and he hadn't become good friends and then took a dump on Chad, I wouldn't have, become good friends with Chad again, and he wouldn't have become my best friend pretty much again like we were, like, back in elementary school. And he was just an easy target. I mean, what can you do, right? The guy thought he was a Texan, but I found out, like, Jeremy Kent told me one time that he wasn't, because he asked him specifically, and he said no, and he would just pretend to be a Texan. He was just ridiculous. He was just trailer trash. I can't say he was anything else. And I don't mean that even offensively. I mean that just an honest statement without any malice. So yeah, I mean, if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't become good friends with Chad again. Yeah, so we'll keep going with this. I don't want to get in a big spiel about Blake. I hope you enjoyed the freezer burn story, though. Chad, you want to add something?
I can't stop laughing.
The funniest shit that happened in grade 10 all involved Blake doing something fucking stupid that we all made fun of. So let's move on, though. That's too funny. We'll have to set an episode aside called Blake Jokes, where we'll talk about Blake jokes, and that's it. But yeah, one of the things was, I mean, there were a lot of things that the first couple of years of high school wasn't really easy for me, because I found that I wasn't, because I did really well. Like, I had pretty much like a 90 average at the end of grade 9, which is what I wanted, because I was doing pretty mediocre beforehand, but I worked my ass off grade 9, and I got a average I was happy with. I was doing well in my courses, and then I was starting to do mediocre again. Like, not mediocre, like I was getting mostly 80s and 90s, so I should have been happy, but like in courses, like I remember getting, I just became disappointed because I got like a 75 in grade 11. Of course, we had Mr. Highland, which I couldn't understand his accent. What a nice guy, what a cool guy, but I just couldn't understand him. Stuff like that really bothered me, and it's funny because I got like a 70 in science, because it was like they alternated between science and band, grade 10 band. It was the fucking dumbest thing ever, and part of me just didn't really give a shit. But I tried really hard most times, except for that science thing, because it just never worked out, and I'd forget about like tests and stuff like that. But I tried really hard, and it wasn't really till the end of grade 11 that things started working out. And I think pretty much from there, one of the best things I could say, and also one of the worst things I could say happened to me, was I got the crazy idea to run for student council.
That was an eventful campaign, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I decided that I wanted to leave high school having done something noteworthy and not just go through it as another part of my life. I wanted to leave a mark on what I had done and say, hey, I did this, and high school was at least somewhat meaningful for me. So I decided I was going to run. I figured, hey, let's give it a shot. Even though people really don't like me that much, why not? And part of it was also I tried to run for valedictorian in grade 9, and no one ended up voting. Not a lot of people ended up voting for me. I think I lost by 2 votes. It really bothered me. But I wanted to redeem myself from that by trying to win something big like this. And so I started my campaign. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, I put a lot of stuff together. I put together that campaign video, which is, to me, still one of the greatest things I put together. One of my favorite videos.
Didn't you just use Windows Movie Maker?
Oh yeah, totally. And it had, like, I found... Rocky 4 doesn't have Gonna Fly now, but Vince DiCola, the score arranger, like the creator of the score, the artist behind the score, had created his own arrangement. I used that because I just liked the way it sounded. And it was half of a parody of those like cheesy like 80s like montage things, or like the montage of politicians like go around shaking hands, kissing babies. I didn't kiss any babies in the video, but stuff like that. And it was just me, Chad, looking like we're talking about important stuff. And I think people really enjoyed it because it was just funny. I wasn't trying to pretend to be something I wasn't. I was just having a good time. And I think people really enjoyed that. And part of me had doubts because I did see people laughing at my poster at one point. I was like, did I do the right fucking thing by running? And it wasn't until I gave my speech. First of all, I wrote a pretty like clean, normal, pretty unspectacular speech that sounded pretty normal. And then I was like, realized, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be funny, and this speech is really boring. So I took the key parts and I just added a bunch of shit that I wanted to throw in there, and people ended up liking it. And yeah, it was good. I mean, it ended up being a good decision at that time, and I ended up winning, and I felt really proud of myself. And I was going through a lot of stuff at that point. I wasn't as good friends with Kyle. We had kind of gotten a big argument, and I wasn't friends with him, and things were tough at those times. And I was just trying to make it, get through grade 11, and then I won this. And it was like to me, it was like the biggest win at that point in my life. Like, to come from a kid who wasn't liked in elementary school, was very unpopular, struggled, wasn't a very good student, mediocre in junior high, wasn't ever like someone's the center of attention for anything. And then I won this. Like, it was just a big win to me. It was like, one thing I did was during the campaign, I watched Rocky just to, because I saw the first 6 films like in junior high, and they really inspired me. And people, before I wanted to be James Bond, like in university, I wanted to be Rocky because he just was the man. He was tough at the same time, but he had emotions. He was a real person, and he was just a good guy deep down. And I wanted to be like that. But anyway, I was watching those movies. I watched the first film to pump myself up and say, I'm the underdog. I'm going in there. I'm doing something that I shouldn't be the guy who wins. I don't look right. I don't talk right. And yet here I am. I think, and I guess that really identified with people who just didn't really understand. Everyone, I think people are just sick of the perfect, cleaned up, the people that just look perfect, the position, the people that always end up getting it and always will. And then there was me, the guy who shouldn't have, the guy who wasn't in great shape, the guy who wasn't an athlete, who wasn't popular, wasn't a genius. I worked hard to get my grades. Some people just think I glided by, but I never did. Being the underdog, I guess a lot of people identify with that. I hope they did. And I ended up winning. It was great. And I watched Rocky 2 because that's when he wins the World Heavyweight Championship instead of losing a split decision. And I was like, things are starting to begin for me.
I hate to break this to you, though, Tommy, but I totally rigged that ballot just because you had told me you would give me a pizza if you won.
Yeah. First of all, it's not rigged. Chad's full of shit. He didn't even smell a fucking polling box, let alone rig it. So guys, don't worry about that. Chad's full of shit. Second of all, I did promise the guy pizza. I said, Chad, he helped me. Like, he helped me put together the video. He helped me put up flyers. He helped me with everything. He's basically my campaign manager. I have to thank him for that. I never thank him enough, I don't think. And I said, man, if we get this, we're going to buy a pizza and we're going to fucking enjoy it. And I was like, fuck yes.
That was delicious.
It was great. And yeah, and it seemed okay. And Sarah had also won, and, I liked Sarah at that point. Not like that. Well, that's another side of the story. We'll get into that in a second. But she seemed like a good person. She seemed relatively friendly, and I seemed like something that I'd work well with for next year. And one thing that I remember is Miss McLeod. Right after we had won, like a couple of days afterwards, we went to go meet her and try to set up some student council stuff. And she had commented that we were two very different presidents, and I think that's very true. We look different, we act different, we talk different, history with that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but I was excited. I had won. I had finally, to me, that was my first real big win in life. Like, maybe I wasn't a great athlete. I never got the chance, I did boxing in junior high. I never got the chance to be an amateur boxer. I never got the chance to star any plays. I always auditioned, but I never got parts. I just never felt like I had won something and I'd really succeeded at something. And then I did. And it was exciting. It was great. Yeah, Chad? You want to add something?
No, but I think it's about time we talk about what happened in your last year of high school.
Ah, yes, grade 12. This is where the shit really hits the fan. So, yeah, I went off the summer, had a good time, relaxed. Actually, I think that was the summer I went back to China. Yeah, that was interesting. I was a little bit, still a little bit of a teenage mess, a little bit of a prick. But overall, I think my family, like my relatives, really enjoyed seeing me, especially my cousins, and I enjoyed seeing them too. So, yeah. But eventually, I got back from China. I'd spent a month there, most of the end of July and most of August. and I was ready to start. I figured this is the beginning for me. This is where things start finally working out. Women will start liking me. People will start liking me. I'll start succeeding. And maybe I'll be a winner for once. And it didn't end up turning out that easy, but yeah. So things started off. I mean, I don't think I started off on a great foot with student council. I mean, first thing I did in student council. First of all, there was that licorice handout at the beginning of the year. First of all, that wasn't ever a guarantee because we didn't know what kind of candy we were gonna buy for that and what we were gonna hand out. It had to be something that was relatively easy, unpackage and was cheap and that we could hand out to a lot of people. And we didn't fucking know where we could get, we didn't think Costco was gonna be able to give us anything at a discounted price. I ended up just buying a shit ton of those Twizzler packages. Ended up being really cheap, like $60 for the whole school. And then what really pissed me off was Tyson. I know a lot of you guys probably remember him. Fucking took a whole chunk of it. It pissed me off because it was handing out for free. If he had asked, I probably would have given him more. Just took a whole chunk. Pissed me off. So it ticked me off a little bit. And great part is the first act of my student council career was a failure. Yeah, the first one was a failure. That terrible, terrible stand-up act because people are fucking stupid and don't understand comedy. And when you make jokes about the Apollo Theater, not racist jokes, but jokes about the Apollo Theater, and they don't know what the fuck the Apollo Theater is, you're off to a bad start. So that was terrible. And one thing I noticed was, Miss Giffen and Miss Smith, who just fucking hated me the whole year, they told me from the beginning that only fucking drama nerds were going to like it, and that they basically made me feel like I was an idiot for even thinking the idea. And yes, it failed, but I wish they had at least given me their support. They were always just so sarcastic and negative, and they just didn't seem to like me. And then they basically came down on me, huge tirade over nothing, because I never said anything really offensive in that comedy skit. It was actually pretty clean and PG. They basically came down on me on a bunch of bullshit, and they started. And also one other thing was I had to grab the key for the grill because it was this long thing. I didn't return the key fast enough. They basically were just complete, utter bitches about it. And they quit. They were already going to quit, but they definitely quit that moment. And you know what? Fuck them. I don't care. Now, you know what? Without them, things still worked out. And at the end of the day, they can go fuck themselves. I don't care. Chad just turning away, shaking his head, but you know what? Fuck them. I don't care. And I don't want to make this really negative, but honestly, they didn't help me from day one, and they took a big shit on me. And whenever I try to do things, they just offered criticisms all the time, even for things that really didn't deserve as much criticism. And they didn't ever help me out or offer good suggestions. They were just full of shit. And you know what? Fuck them. Let's get over that.
Well, it was the first of many failures and few successes, I guess.
Thanks. Are you my friend? Fuck off. But yeah, after that, things started going more smoothly. Initially, when we had set up and we got staff advisors, things were going well. Especially, I remember Miss Casey. I have to thank her because she was like that vocal minority that understood what I was saying when I was talking logistics for things or whether or not they work, and supported me when I came up with ideas. She was the only staff advisor that actually supported me throughout the whole thing, and it's a shame that she couldn't stick around for the whole thing. I mean, she ended up getting transferred to Auburn, but she was great during that very short period of time. And things started working out. We had coffee houses. People were starting to enjoy the events. I'd recovered from that terrible disaster of a first student council event. Things were okay, It was an improvement. And things were starting working out, especially those coffee houses really working out. And things were okay from that point. I mean, during that first semester, the only thing that was an issue was, honestly, Chemistry 12. Because JMac just went nuts. I don't know what happened. Chemistry 11 made sense. I ended up getting, I think, around a 90-something in that course. And I wasn't great at chemistry, but I worked hard and I ended up getting a decent mark. But I think she just went nuts, Chemistry 12. Even tutors didn't understand the shit she was coming up with. So that was really stressful. And just trying to, because I wasn't someone, I didn't take off blocks for a semester, and I wasn't planning to take any off blocks, period, but I ended up taking one in last semester. But yeah, that was the thing that went crazy, and I remember during exam time just being stressed out and everything, and but I mean, one of the things that started to notice was, I guess I was starting to like Sarah. I guess that was the genesis of this unfortunate series of events that I guess are coming up is that I don't know. It's interesting. A lot of people end up liking. It's not usually an immediate attraction. I mean, obviously she was good looking. It wasn't like that, but it's not like the heart throbbing feeling where it's like, oh well, this is something I really care about, and then I want them to care about me too, kind of feeling. It's never immediate for me. It's not like I guess I'm just not someone who works well with love at first sight. I get to know people. I gradually become accustomed to them, and I begin to admire them and stuff like that. Emotions. I don't want to get into it. I wish I didn't have emotions. I always joke that I wish I was asexual, so then I could just focus on everything else. Like, I could be really successful and not worry about it. Just be good friends with everyone. But no. But yeah, I mean, she was pretty supportive at that time. She understood I was basically going nuts with Chemistry 12 and talking to a lot of people. It was a tough time, but overall, I think first year went okay. Things were working out. I mean, and I was actually starting to enjoy things, and maybe it wasn't perfect. Like, I still didn't have a girlfriend or anything like that, and I wasn't a successful athlete or anything like that, or doing any of the stuff I'm doing now that I really enjoy. But I felt like I was at least doing something okay. Want to add something, Chad?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, rocky start in the beginning, but things worked out, I think, by the end of first semester, and it ended nicely there. I had a nice Christmas break and relaxed, and things turned out okay. I didn't get a great mark in Chemistry 12, but okay enough that I didn't really worry about it. Yeah, so second semester, where the shit really, really hit the fan.
This is where I come into the picture.
Yeah. So what happened second semester we got back is, for starters, we started really getting involved. Like, the HRM council, which is something I really enjoyed. It's something that I think people who know me well know I really enjoyed that, because it was all these different student council presidents getting together and just, just collaborating in an open and positive environment. I really enjoyed that, but that didn't really start happening that much until the end of first semester, and it really only picked up second semester when we started having more meetings and we planned Acts for AIDS, which I don't think a lot of people from PA went, but it was a great show, and I was really happy about that. But anyway, Acts for AIDS was basically a fundraiser for AIDS treatments and awareness, and we were planning that, and yeah, that was when I was like, okay, now things are really starting to go well. I can take shots at things. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about having a repeat performance with a terrible stand-up act. So I was like,
you still did a rap at the end of the night.
We'll get into that in a second, Chad. Don't worry. But yeah, I mean, and I asked Sarah out, and she was like, "Yeah." I was really happy. I was like, "Great! There's finally a girl who actually doesn't find me repulsive and actually likes me. Great success." But sadly, things didn't work out that well, and that was all. That all happened before. Like March break and stuff. If I look back now, I can start to see seeds of things starting to get worse. Like, we had a lot of staff advisor shifts and changes, and new people coming on, old people leaving, and some people were really starting to show poor attendance, especially when Greece started getting. So we came back from March break, and I was expecting, oh great, we start going on days with Sarah, good times, and we'll start great, I'll have a girlfriend. I won't be lonely all the time. That sounds really depressing, sad, but you know what I mean. Like, nobody wants to be alone, but I can manage it for the most part. But yeah, like, things were going to start good, and that's when shit hit the fan for real. There, it finally happened. Shit hit the fan. For starters, it turned out she just wasn't interested, and she just didn't want to break my heart. But honestly, I can take rejection, but I don't like receiving it several months later or like weeks later, and honestly, I'm a little naive with that stuff. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, so it ended up eventually, like a month later, I asked her, I'm like, so is that ever going to happen? Because she ended up I asked her like once or twice, like, hey, do you want to do something here? And she said, oh, no, well, I think she went on a trip one time or something like that, and stuff like that. And eventually just said, yeah, sorry, I just said it so that you wouldn't, so you wouldn't feel bad, and then I just want to be friends. It's like, oh, damn it. It did kind of affect my psyche a little bit there. And then people in the student council just started getting lazier and lazier. Like, they'd stop showing up for meetings, especially the IB kids and the people in Greece. I noticed an attitude from a lot of people. Like, Brian Larice, I didn't want to have to bring his name up, but I just did it, so whatever. He was someone that I thought was pretty cool beforehand, like before all the student council stuff. And then second semester, whether it was he dropped out of IB or he was going through tough stuff, he just became a huge prick. I didn't want to have to deal with him, but he did. And I just found like people became less interested. They just stopped trying because maybe they had finally got their credit for their resume because they knew they wouldn't be kicked off at that point, because I also didn't have the power to kick people off the student council. But people just stopped giving a shit. And I just started wondering what happened to what happened to the dream that had become. And, one song, Finger 11 came out with Living with a Dream. It was for, I think it was Royal Rumble, one of the WWE pay-per-views. And that song was like, at first, to me, it was a really happy song because that was when I was like, great, women finally like me. Life is successful. Student council's going great. My last year is going to be great. And then it became a depressing song for me because it's just like the dreams that could have happened that just never did. So yeah, it was tough at that point, and I started getting really bummed out because people weren't giving a shit with the student council, and fucking assholes like the staff advisors like Mr. Young. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Mr. Young, you dick. You were a dick, and I'm not gonna pretend that you weren't. People like that. Who else was there? Oh yeah, Miss McDonald. She just hated me from day one. I don't know what that was all about. Basically, the first day she cut me off when I was trying to make a point and said, "Oh, we don't need to hear from you," or something like that. And now you all know that Breadcrumbs from Skyfall is my ringtone. I will answer my dad later. I told you it was uncut. I keep reminding you. But yeah, like Miss McDonald just hated me from day one. I don't know what I did to that woman, but she just didn't like me. And I always try to make valid points, and then she just freak out at me. And she always liked everyone else. She liked Sarah. She liked everybody else in the council. She just fucking hated me. And she was always so hypocritical. I hate that bitch. But let's not worry about that. But yeah, essentially the staff advisors had basically turned on me. They were turning a blind eye to the people in the council that weren't doing shit. But whenever I made a mistake, suddenly I was bad guy number one, and I was an easy target to make an example in front of everyone, which was ridiculous. And you also know Vesper's ringtone from Casino Royale is my ringtone. The more you know. Yeah, so, but yeah, they just basically turned on me. The people in student council weren't giving a shit. Sarah was becoming increasingly absent. Like, she went on, like, a trip at one point. She wasn't going to the HRM student council meetings anymore. And I was really bummed out, man. I was just depressed. And Acts for AIDS was one of those things where, Sarah was finally starting to go to those HRM council things more. But then the day of, she had some kind of volunteering thing where she apparently just found out last minute that she wouldn't be able to get the day off from volunteering for some soccer thing. I don't remember. But I was like, shouldn't you have gotten that off? It's like, I can't always decide things like that. And I'm like, well, shouldn't you at least have let me know so that I'm not on my own representing PA completely on my own? And stuff like that started happening, and I was just bummed out. And it wasn't, things were getting tough, and it wasn't, I really enjoyed actually, I was sorry to break the nice flow there, but I really enjoyed Acts for AIDS. It was a terrible day all around. Sarah had told me she wasn't going to be at the event, and that she just wasn't going to be there. It really ticked me off because she had already missed a couple of things here and there, and she just wasn't as great of attendance for things. It was really starting to tick me off. So I was pissed off with her.
So you dragged me along.
Chad came along because he's a good guy. I said, we need someone from PA representing because nobody from student council was going to help out. Apparently showed up for some reason, but that was 2 people out of a council of 15 people showed up. Only 2 showed up, and it was just a depressing day. And then they said, okay, go out for supper that night. And I'm like, oh. And we were looking around for somewhere to eat because we only had 30 minutes to get food. And we were like, fuck, we're going to have to go to a gas station, get really shitty gas station sandwiches. And we took a chance. This is at Halifax West, I should add. So we were downtown, in that area, the whole Bears Lake area. And we took a chance. We're like, Pizza Hut, it's going to take them 20 to 30 minutes. There's no way we can get a pizza. We went there. We were like, can we get a pizza? Is there any way that there's a pizza that either be ready in a few minutes or it's already ready? And actually, we just had an order canceled, and it ended up being this extra large stuffed crust pizza, meat lovers pizza. And me and Chad, we were stunned for a second. We just paused. We didn't say anything. I turned to Chad, and he turns to me, and then he says, "Chad."
Hell yeah.
And he's like, Tommy, we got to do it. And I'm like, fuck yeah, man. And we did. And it was so great. Everyone else had gotten pretty normal meals, and we just had a fucking decked out pizza. It was great.
That's only because we were the only people that didn't have cars.
Exactly. And that's also during the point in time where I didn't have a drive. I had a learner's permit, I think, at that point, but I'd never done my driver's test, so I ended up getting it pretty late. I did it like at the end of the year.
Well, it's because Sarah had dropped us off and then just left.
And then she was just like, "Oh, by the way, I'm not gonna be there." I'm like, "Could you have told me that a little bit sooner, so I could I could plan ahead. I could be ready for everything." Nope. Just tell me on that day. Whatever. So yeah, that was a brief moment, and then things just started going downhill again. And it wasn't until the very end of the year that I started to feel good about things again, because we had that whole grad. Everyone remembers the grad awards, right? At that the one before the actual graduation ceremony with
the golden plungers and
I'd saw. First of all, it was supposed to be the student council that wrote that list, and it ended up being that it was Sarah and a bunch of her friends that wrote it. And yeah, I looked at the list and I was immediately pissed off because it was all her friends and people, only like select few people. It was nobody else besides them. I was livid. And for once I was like, I'm not going to be the nice guy anymore. In fact, I think that whole semester I was trying to turn heel, which is basically wrestling jargon for become the bad guy, because I didn't want to be a nice guy. I didn't want to be pushed around. I didn't want to be that guy anymore. And I think that for sure was the moment where I fucking lost it. And I regained my balls, so to speak, because I was like, no, she had shown me the list in the library. I was there with a couple friends like Dresden and all that, those kind of people that I was good friends with in classes like global history and stuff like that. I was like, no, this is bullshit. You better fucking change this, because this is ridiculous. There's no one but your friends on here, and this is ridiculous. And I flipped out. Like, I told her off there. Yeah. And that was the moment I was like, and people around me were, not applauding me, but basically supporting me, saying like, yeah, it's good that someone's standing up. And I asked Jacqueline Weigel a couple of days ago about it, and she said when she had heard about it too, because I bet a lot of people had heard about what had happened, although I never talked to a lot of people about it. Essentially, she had said it's good that someone was standing up to all that bullshit, which it was. Yeah, and I felt bad because I think someone had told me that I ended up making her cry or something like that, really stupid. But I felt bad. I apologize for that, because I don't try to make people feel like shit. I just don't like being pushed around. I don't like people taking advantage of situations. But yeah, I mean, yeah, so, and eventually the list got revised. It still wasn't perfect, but at least like Dresden and Brent won Best Bromance. I was happy because they weren't on that list, but they'd gotten it, and it had proved that at least someone out of that clique was going to win something.
That totally should have been us, though, shouldn't it have?
Oh, dude, man, seriously, we had the best bromance going on. But at least someone besides that clique of people had won it. And things started working out. I mean, I apologized to Sarah. We had finally made amends, and I know I basically said that she was a devil, and she, honestly, if you had asked me, one thing Chad will know is that during that whole year, like, especially second semester, on Friday nights, I would receive like the worst news from student council, and I'd invite Chad over to blow off some steam, and he'd be forced to sit through like these 10-minute rants of me going off on student council and Sarah. He has listened to more rants than you ever will listening to this podcast.
Yeah, but then I'd just rebuttal with my stories from tech.
Yeah, and we complain about tech and student council all the time.
Because they kind of are interchangeable most of the time.
Both with fucking dumb people that don't belong there.
Let's just forget about that.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I don't hold any malice against her now, but I'm not happy about those days. If you'd asked me mid-second semester, I said, yeah, whatever, that bitch. I feel bad about thinking of that now, but honestly, I don't hold any malice against her. We did make amends near the end, and it was fine. I don't really care. I didn't want to be bitter at the end of graduating, but at least I'd gotten my balls back at the end of the semester. I was being too much of a pushover at the beginning of the year, and slowly but surely, I was back. And it was great.
And then we were high school graduates.
I know. And, I was happy because I thought that I'd taken a stand. I'd tried to at least try to achieve all the things I wanted. I think I came pretty close, Didn't end up finding, that special someone, but fuck it. Man, I was co-president of a student council. I'd rapped in front of hundreds of people. I'd done a bunch of crazy stuff that I wouldn't have done if I wasn't student council president, and I had a good time. And you know what? I think I did leave a mark on, and people won't forget me anytime soon.
And that was right around the same time that we started the weekly review, wasn't it?
Right. So, yeah, after we graduated, one of the things that really bothered me one that I forgot to bring up during my time grade 12 was I did Mr. PA, but one of the things people probably don't know a lot about that is a lot of the stuff I wrote got censored. Like, it's like, no, you can't say that. And then other stuff that sounded even more offensive would get passed, and I was like, what the fuck? And I felt like I was just basically crippled creatively, and it was just set up for people that weren't me. It just didn't feel like I was belonged there, and it was the right choice for me to enter. So I wanted to repel that. I wanted my own fucking show that wouldn't get censored. No one would say you have to rewrite that. I could say what I want, do what I want, tell the stories, put the music I like, everything I want. It would be my own show. It started out with the weekly reviews. I could talk about what I want, uncut, uncensored, what this is supposed to be, essentially. And what happened was, initially, it wasn't supposed to be like a weekly episodic show like with fiction. It was supposed to just be me talking about my week and, just engaging with people. But what started was, with the second episode, I started doing intros. Basically, they're entertaining side stories just to get you started. Like, the first one was me being a spy, essentially, with Secret Agent Man in the background.
And yes, they got more and more complicated with every episode.
And eventually, the stories and the intros took precedence over the actual me talking about my week, because my week's pretty boring. It ended up being my week, ended up being I did the video the whole week, setting it up and shooting. I didn't do anything else. But yeah, and I realized I really like this because I get to flex my creative muscle. I get to I get to tell stories. I get to represent the things I like Inuyasha, James Bond, things I really enjoyed as a kid and growing up my entire life. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I got to spend time with my friends too.
And it all started right down here in this very basement.
Exactly, where we're recording the first podcast. It's the circle of life. Everything just coming back.
Mind you, that was a very impromptu recording that we did. We had just been watching some wrestling that night, and then Tommy's like, you know what? We should
I had actually wanted to do a show for a little while, and then I asked Chad, I said, look, man, I don't know if you're interested, but if you wanted to be the cameraman, I'd really like to have you on. And he said, I have the original footage wasn't even close to stand an acceptable video quality, but we were just using his vacation camcorder for the family, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I did it. So yeah, okay, we're on an hour now, so let's try to wrap this up quickly with university, which I could go on forever, but I'll keep it short for everyone. So yeah, after I'd finished those weekly reviews in the summer, which I really enjoyed because I didn't have a job that summer. I didn't want a job. I did want a job. I tried to get a job that summer, but it didn't happen that way. No one was gonna hire somebody for 2 months before they started university and basically pieced out. So yeah, what happened there was, I did those videos, and then the summer ended, and I started university, and I had convinced my parents, because I ended up getting a pretty big scholarship, which everyone's heard enough of. They don't want to hear me talk about my scholarship anymore. I got basically a full scholarship for university. I don't have to pay for tuition. So my parents agreed to let me go to residence because it was all covered basically in my tuition. And, residence was great. I mean, I was living on my own. I was pretty independent. I did meet a lot of great people, not a lot of which are still my friends, because I burned that damn bridge with fifth floor. Nobody likes me on the floor pretty much. But it was a great time. I made a lot of friends. I had a good time. I was independent. I was just enjoying university. I was kicking those grades' asses. It was like people kept telling us that university was going to be hard, and that first year wasn't. It was so easy. It was just great. I was getting good marks. I was happy. I was with friends. I mean, but everything has to come to an end. It was a great first year, but you can't keep buying pizzas weekly, between friends, even if you're splitting with friends. You can't do that. You can't not exercise. You can't, study all the time and expect that kind of lifestyle to keep going. And in reality, I think it was just me kind of scar-facing myself, living this so-called high life, and I was just actually draining myself and dying in a way.
Has much really changed since you've come home?
A lot has changed.
You're still eating a lot of pizza, but that's mostly because of me.
First of all, I'm not eating quite as much. Me and TJ were literally just, TJ, my good friend I met in university, we would just get together, watch episodes of Archer, and buy pizza. And that was almost every weekend. So much worse then, but I wasn't exercising. I wasn't doing martial arts like I do now. Like I do kickboxing, like a lot of Muay Thai and different stuff like that. Judo, jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu. I can't do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm terrible on the ground. Don't laugh at me. And Jeet Kune Do, which I guess is technically a philosophy, but it's also a system now at this point, invented by Bruce Lee, built on the foundations of Wing Chun with the center line, boxing, fencing, and whatever else Bruce Lee found, which was pretty much everything. But yeah, we'll talk about Jeet Kune Do some other episode because I don't want to get into that now. But yeah, I wasn't doing all that stuff, and it was second semester it started getting worse. And you can see in the videos, I've definitely put on the freshman like 20. And I think I was just really tired, and I realized, and by the time second semester came around, they weren't really babying us quite as much. I wasn't doing quite as well. I didn't do bad. I actually did pretty good. But it wasn't, what I was expecting, and I was starting to get tired, and then I ended up graduating. Things were okay. I was still friends with most people. I didn't end up getting the video out. But then I got my first job at Staples. I found that was really challenging because they would always give me like the crazy, like they wouldn't give me really long shifts, but they give me basically shifts no one else wanted to do. And I really appreciate that that's my first job. It was a great first experience, but I found it was really tiring for me, and I just couldn't handle I couldn't handle the ridiculous like things that district managers would do, and like the ridiculous like changing and conflicting policies. I couldn't handle the often, easily pissed off and quite uneducated in terms of technology customers that were coming. I just couldn't handle it. And first semester of second year, I thought things were going to improve and that things wouldn't be quite as bad. But I discovered that the same thing. Like I just didn't have that drive. I was really tired. I wasn't doing the things I wanted. A part of it was I wasn't getting that video out. I was tired. And they really killed me that first semester with things like discrete. Like second year CS is tough. They just try to weed people out, but it was rough, and yeah, I was just really tired again, and I hadn't lost any. I lost the freshman 20 over the summer, but I kind of gained it back again when I was in university. I was in residence again. I was on the third floor, which is shit, and the people would always just get drunk and really loud and do stupid things like play floor hockey in the middle of the hallway. And I was tired again. I wasn't happy. So I eventually moved out of residence, deal with their bullshit early termination fees, and I went home. And it turned out to be a great move because I started eating better. I started exercising, started doing martial arts again. I just started being happy. I could see Chad more because we weren't, like, he wasn't across town, like across the bridge. It was just, again, like, I'm like a 5-minute drive away from Chad pretty much. And things started, it wasn't easy. That second semester was still really hard, but it was the blueprints to things slowly improving. And I ended up getting, my grades didn't exactly improve, but they still aren't bad right now after that second semester of second year. And things now, after that second semester, things have started to improve. I mean, there were a couple rough moments, like a lot of friends that I did have first year, like, I guess I'm going to have to name them because it is a big impact to me, but people like Isaac, Jillian, not so much Steven and Brian because they never really gave a shit about me. I bet it was the same way for me. But those people that were really big in my first year, just basically, we had fallings out because, I was going through a tough year and I wasn't always positive when I talked about it. And because of that, they viewed me as being too negative, and they basically called me out on Facebook, of all places, when I was writing, a pretty negative post, but not anything more negative than other people were posting, and I wasn't always negative. So it bothered me that they had basically turned my back. They did basically take a big dump on me, and it bothered me. But, even though it was rough second semester, I think if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be appreciating what I have now, because I have a good co-op job, research. I essentially get to make my own hours. As long as I come in 35 hours a week, I'm good. I'm working with great people like, Mo, Giuliano, and our supervisor, Derek. It's just great times. I'm making these movies. I just finally got out that last movie, and we're going to make another one this summer. We're doing this podcast right now. I'll probably start writing that blog again if people actually want to read it. It's just good. I feel happy. And I'm doing my martial arts, as I mentioned before, and I'm just happy, because I get to do things I enjoy. I'm making some progress, even if I still suck at things, especially judo. But I'm having a good time. I'm happy, and I'm glad. And, I don't want anyone to think from this that my life's all negative or I'm always angry. It's just there are things that piss me off, and I do have periods of time where I'm unhappy. But on the most part, I think I'm a pretty happy person, and I'm, all of that tough stuff that happened for a reason, so that it would toughen me up for life. It would make me realize that appreciate the things I do get and value success, value hard work, and keep improving and never give up and always look for the next challenge. And yeah, I'm just happy. I'm glad I got, that was a lot of stuff. That was essentially a lot of the big problems, not everything, but a lot of the big problems and a lot of the things that made me happy. I just went through that. I got to experience that again.
Thank God it's summer now, right?
Exactly. And thank God this essentially we're done with this. I mean, we went through all that stuff. Now you have a brief idea of some of the things. I mean, I didn't really get to go in depth with a lot of stuff. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, you have such an idea of what I've gone through, who I am, and what I want to be. And I hope you enjoyed me just being frank. I said a lot of things I probably didn't think I was going to, but yeah, that's part of the podcast, just being open. And yeah, we'll see you around. I hope you'll be around for the next episode. We'll have a guest. I've got a couple ideas, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy the guest. And we'll let them talk about their lives and projects they're doing. And yeah, you'll get to hear me be frank, and other people be frank too, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So that's all we got for the podcast today, The Danger Zone. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. All right, stay frosty.
You've been listening to The Danger Zone with Tommy Lee and Chad Allen.